The United States is filled with shining skylines, highways, and smiling postcards. But beneath that glossy surface is another America. One you won't find in tourist guides or morning news. An America built on secrets, silence, and fear. Tonight, you'll hear 12 of the most terrifying true horror stories ever recorded across the country. Stories pulled from police reports, first-hand confessions, and events that were never fully explained. From abandoned houses in New England where no family ever lasted more than a year, to strange disappearances in the Arizona desert, to voices recorded in hotel rooms long after guests were gone. These stories don't ask for your belief. They don't need your approval. They only need you to listen. Because the moment you do, you become part of the record. So don't look away. Don't turn the volume down. The truth is already closer than you think. And tonight, it's ready to speak. One day your mom packs everything you own into trash bags, tells you to get in the car, and drives away from your home without a word. That's what happened to me in 1993, when I was just 10, living in a house that felt alive, and not in a good way. Doors slammed shut on their own, footsteps echoed upstairs when no one was there. The TV changed channels by itself, and something dark and wrong lingered in the air. But the real terror? What my mom saw that made her run. Stay with me, this story will haunt you. It was 1992, and my family, Mom, my older brother Jake, my Aunt Lisa, and me, moved into a 4-bedroom house on the south side of St. Louis. The house was your basic layout, built in the 40s or 50s, and Mom called it a steal with its low rent and big backyard. I was excited at first. A new neighborhood meant new friends, maybe a fresh start after Dad left. But the moment we stepped inside, the house felt wrong. The air was thick, like it was pressing down on you, and the light seemed dimmer than it should have been, even with every lamp on. Mom brushed it off as old house vibes, but Jake, who was 12 and usually fearless, kept looking over his shoulder. The first week was quiet, just unpacking and settling in. But then the weirdness started. The TV would change channels by itself, flipping from cartoons to static in the middle of the day. I'd hear doors slamming upstairs, hard enough to shake the walls, but when I checked, every room was empty. Mom said it was the wind, but the windows were always closed. Jake started acting strange too. Jumpy, quiet, not his usual loudmouth self. He'd stare at the basement door, like he expected something to come out. I didn't like the basement either. It was cold, damp, and smelled faintly of sulfur like rotten eggs. By month 2, things got worse. I'd hear footsteps upstairs when nobody was up there, slow and heavy, pacing back and forth at night. One evening I was doing homework when the sinks in the basement spewed black goo out of the drains, oozing up like tar. Mom screamed when she saw it, scrubbing for hours, but the smell lingered. The same goo would run down the walls, leaving streaks we couldn't explain. I started sleeping with my door locked, but even that didn't feel safe. Jake was the worst off. He begged me to sleep in his room with him down there because something would keep waking him up at around like 3:04 in the morning every night. He said it wasn't just noises. It felt like something was watching him, standing at the foot of his bed. One night I gave in and slept on his floor. Jake was pale, clutching his blanket, whispering about shadows moving in the dark. I didn't believe him until 3:04 a.m. hit. The room went ice cold and I heard it. A low, guttural hum, like a voice trapped in the walls. Jake sat up, eyes wide. "You hear that?" he hissed. I nodded, my heart pounding. Then a shadow shifted. In the corner, too tall, too thin to be human. We didn't move, didn't breathe until it faded at dawn. After that, Jake refused to sleep alone, and I didn't blame him. The house started affecting all of us. Mom was on edge, snapping at us for no reason. Aunt Lisa, who'd always been the calm one, started burning sage, muttering about bad energy. I noticed other things too. My toys would be rearranged when I got home from school, lined up in perfect rows. The backyard where we used to play felt off. The soil glittered under the sun, almost metallic, though we never figured out why. At night I'd wake to whispers. Not words, just sounds, like someone was trying to speak through static. I stopped going to the basement altogether. The air down there felt alive, heavy with something I couldn't name. Then came the day everything changed. I was walking home from school, kicking rocks, when I saw Mom's car parked out front, engine running. She was sitting outside in the car with all of our belongings in trash bags. Her face was pale, her hands gripping the wheel. "Get in," she said, her voice flat. We were moving right now. I asked why, but she just shook her head, eyes fixed on the house. Jake and Lisa were already in the back seat, silent. We drove to a motel, then a new apartment across town. Mom wouldn't talk about it, not then. Years later, when I was in high school, Mom finally opened up. She and Lisa had covered the upstairs with flour once, and immediately saw footprints. Not ours, too big, too heavy. The remote control came, up off the table once into the air, and was thrown at her, hitting her in the face. My bed once flung across my room, toys scattered when no one was home. She'd seen things too, shadows in the mirrors, a figure in the basement that vanished when she screamed. That last day, she'd walked into the kitchen and felt it. A presence, cold and angry, whispering her name. She grabbed us and ran, terrified it would follow. We never went back. The house was rented out again, then abandoned last I heard. I drove by once in my 20s, and it looked normal. Peeling paint, overgrown lawn, just another old place. But I couldn't shake the feeling it was watching me. I started researching, digging through city records. In the 1950s, a man had died there, a recluse with a dark reputation. Neighbors said he dabbled in things he shouldn't. Rituals, maybe worse. Some claimed the house was cursed, built on bad land. I don't know what to believe, but I know what I felt. That house wasn't empty. Something lived there, and it didn't want us. Jake still won't talk about it. He's got a family now, pretends it was just kid stuff. Mom never mentions it either, but she keeps a Bible by her bed, something she never did before. Me, I hear that hum sometimes late at night, like it's calling me back. I've got a recorder now just in case, but I'm too scared to use it. What if it answers? That house is still out there, waiting for its next family. Would you move? To run like we did? And if you heard that hum, would you dare find out what's making it? A scream shattered the morning quiet in our Tennessee home. My little sister, Lily, stood frozen, clutching Mom's purse, her eyes wide with terror. Inside was a dead mouse, sliced clean in half, placed like a grim offering. That night, Mom found a bruise blooming on her thigh, dark and unexplained. This wasn't a prank or accident. It was 2019, and something sinister was creeping into our lives. We'd felt watched for weeks, and now it was leaving marks. Stay with this true story. It'll make you question what's hiding in your own home. It was the summer of 2019 in a rural Tennessee town, where the days were long and the nights hummed with cicadas. Our small farmhouse, nestled among rolling fields, was home to me, my mom, Ellen, and my 6-year-old sister, Lily. Ellen was a single mom, tough but warm, always juggling work and keeping us fed. Lily was a bundle of energy, forever trailing. Glitter and stuffed animals. For weeks we'd felt watched in our own home, a prickling unease that followed us from room to room. Doors creaked when no one was there, and shadows seemed to linger in corners. Ellen brushed it off as old house quirks, but I wasn't so sure. That morning, Lily was digging through Ellen's purse for candy, a habit we'd all grown used to. Her scream cut through the kitchen like a knife. I rushed in, finding her trembling. The purse spilled across the table. A dead mouse lay inside, sliced clean in half, its halves placed neatly side by side. No blood, no mess, just precision. Ellen pushed past me, her face paling as she inspected the purse. There were no signs of break-in. The doors were locked, windows secure. "How did this get here?" she whispered, her voice tight. Lily clung to me, sobbing. "It wasn't there yesterday. I checked the house, every closet, every corner. Nothing was out of place. The purse had been on the counter all night, untouched. Ellen suggested a stray cat, but we didn't own one. And the Ate, neighbor's cats, never came inside." The air felt heavy, like the house was watching us. Lily refused to touch the purse again, and Ellen's hands shook as she cleaned it. That unease we'd felt for weeks was no longer vague. It was real, and it was escalating. I couldn't shake. The image of that mouse placed like a message, but from who or what? The day passed in a haze of unease. Ellen tried to keep things normal, making Lily's favorite mac and cheese, but her eyes kept darting to the windows. I couldn't stop thinking about the mouse, its clean cut, its deliberate placement. That night, as we sat in the living room, Ellen shifted uncomfortably, tugging at her pajama leg. "Look at this," she said, her voice barely audible. She pulled up her pant leg, revealing a large, dark bruise on her thigh, the size of a grapefruit, its edges jagged like a handprint. "I didn't bump into anything," she said, her eyes wide. There was no explanation for it. Lily gasped, scooting closer to me. "Did the mouse do that?" she asked, her voice small. I forced a laugh, but my stomach churned. That feeling of being watched was stronger now, like an invisible presence pressing against us. I checked the bruise under the lamp. It was deep purple, almost black, and Ellen winced when I touched it. "It wasn't there this morning," she insisted. I believed her. Our house, once a safe haven, felt like a trap. I stayed up late, scouring the internet for answers. Stories of unexplained bruises popped up, some linked to hauntings, others to entities leaving marks. One forum mentioned gifts, like dead animals, as signs of something malevolent staking a claim. My skin crawled. Was the mouse a warning, and the bruise a mark? I thought back to the past weeks, faint knocks at night, lights flickering, Lily's complaints of someone in my room. Ellen had dismissed it as nightmares, but now I wasn't sure. I checked every lock, every window, but the house felt exposed, its walls too thin. The next morning, Lily refused to sleep alone, curling up in Ellen's bed. Ellen was quieter, her face drawn. She kept rubbing the bruise as if it burned. "I don't feel right," she admitted, her voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. I pressed her for details. Had she seen anything, felt anything? She hesitated, then nodded. "Last night I woke up freezing, like someone was standing over me." My heart sank. I hadn't told her about my own sleepless nights. The sense of eyes in the dark. Whatever was in our house wasn't just watching. It was touching us. It's been 5 years, but that summer changed us. Ellen sold the farmhouse not long after, moving us to a city apartment where the only noises were traffic. Lily, now 11, still checks under her bed, and Ellen's bruise faded, but her wariness didn't. I'm haunted by the thought that something was in our house, leaving marks we couldn't explain. I've spent years trying to understand it. Local records mentioned our land, a former homestead with whispers of bad luck. A 1980s article reported a family fleeing after finding dead animals in their barn. Another, from 2005, described a farmer with unexplained bruises, blaming spirits. None had answers, only echoes of our fear. Online, I found others with similar stories. A woman in Kentucky discovered a gutted bird in her mailbox, followed by bruises on her arms. A man in Georgia felt watched, then found welts on his back. Some called it poltergeists, others curses. One user suggested these gifts and marks were claims by something territorial, something that didn't want us there. The more I read, the more I wondered. Was our house built on something's domain? Did we disturb it? What keeps me up is Ellen's silence. She never spoke of that summer, but I caught her staring at old photos of the farmhouse, her eyes distant. Did she see more than she admitted? And Lily, why was she the one to find the mouse? Was it meant for her? I've considered returning, walking that land to demand answers. But what if it's still there, waiting? I pass wooded areas now and feel that same prickling like eyes in the dark. Here's what I've learned. Houses hold secrets and not all are human. If you find something out of place, a dead animal, a strange mark, don't ignore it. Check your home at night. Listen for sounds that don't belong, because something left a mouse and a bruise in our house, and it wasn't done with us. If you've seen signs like these or felt a presence you can't explain, share your story below. I need to know we're not alone. And if this gripped you, subscribe for more true tales that'll make you question what's in your walls. The next one's coming and it's even darker. It's 2 a.m. in a quiet beachside rental, the kind where the ocean's roar drowns out everything, except your gut. Sarah, a no-nonsense mom, wakes to a nagging urge for water, but as she nears her bedroom door, a strange feeling stops her. Cold. Her hand hovers over the knob, heart racing for no reason she can name. Then, from inside, a thud, a frantic knock, like someone's trapped. The sound isn't right, too erratic, too desperate. The house is locked, her daughter and father-in-law asleep. So who or what is making that noise? Sarah's a skeptic, but this moment shakes her to the core. Is it just her mind, or is something waiting on the other side? Stick around, because this night's about to unravel in ways you won't believe. Beach House is a maze of shadows, its wooden floors creaking under Sarah's bare feet. The ocean's roar filters through the walls, a constant hum that usually lulls her to sleep. But tonight, it's oppressive, like the house is holding its breath. Sarah, 32, is a practical woman, engineer by trade, skeptic by nature. She's the one who debunks ghost stories at family gatherings, rolling her eyes at her sister's Ouija board tales. But now, standing in the dim hallway, a strange feeling grips her, an instinct so sharp it's almost physical. Her bedroom. Scar looms ahead, its chipped paint glowing faintly under the moonlight streaming through a window. She was just heading to the kitchen for water, but someone, is telling her not to go back in. A thud echoes from inside the room, sharp and deliberate, like a fist against wood. Sarah freezes, her breath catching. Another knock, then another, frantic and uneven, like someone's desperate to get out or in. Her mind races for explanations. The dryer? No, it's in the basement and they didn't run it tonight. A mouse? Possible, but this is too loud, too rhythmic. Maybe it's just the house settling, she mutters, clinging to logic, but her voice sounds hollow, unconvincing. The knocks grow louder, a chaotic pattern that makes her skin crawl. She steps closer, her hand trembling as it brushes the doorknob. The metal's cold, almost biting, and her gut screams, "Don't open it." Sarah glances down the hall. Her daughter Lily is asleep in the next room, her door slightly ajar. Tom, her father-in-law, is in the guest room, probably snoring through the night. The house is secure, She checked the locks herself before bed. So why does it feel like an intruder's here, just beyond that door? The ocean's roar seems to fade, replaced by the pounding in her chest. She backs away, her socks silent on the floor, and grabs her phone from the kitchen counter. No signal, typical for this remote stretch of coast. She's alone with this. Whatever it is. The knocks pause, and for a moment she thinks it's over. Then they start again, faster, angrier, like the thing inside knows she's listening. Sarah's logic frays at the edges. Is it a person? An animal? Or just her mind, frayed from stress and grief over her mom's recent death? She shakes her head, refusing to spiral, but the fear's real, clawing at her throat. Sarah's heart hammers as the knocks grow louder, a chaotic drumbeat that fills the hallway. She's rooted to the spot, phone useless in her hand. The ocean's roar now a distant hum. The bedroom door feels alive, pulsing with whatever's behind it. She's not a believer in gut feelings. She's the woman who checks facts, measures. Twice cuts once, but this isn't logic. This is primal, a warning carved into her bones. It's just a noise, she whispers, trying to convince herself it's a mouse, a pipe, anything normal. But the knocks are too human, too desperate, like someone's fighting to break free. She backs toward the sliding glass door to the balcony, the cool night air a sharp contrast to the house's stifling heat. Her eyes never leave the bedroom, as if looking away will unleash whatever's inside. She fumbles with her phone, dialing Tom's number. It rings twice before he picks up, his voice groggy. "Sarah, what's wrong?" she stammers. "There's something in my room. Knocking. I need you to check." Tom's silent for a beat, then says, "Stay put. I'm coming." The knocks pause, and Sarah holds her breath, hoping it's done. But they start again, a frenzied burst that makes her flinch. She grips the balcony railing, the ocean's dark expanse stretching beyond, indifferent to her fear. Minutes crawl, by each knock a nail in her nerves. Finally, she hears Tom's footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming down the hall. The moment he reaches the door, the knocking stops, like a switch flipped off. Sarah's stomach twists, relief or dread she can't tell. Tom, a burly man in his 60s, pushes the bedroom door open, his flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Sarah follows, staying close, her breath shallow. He checks all 3 rooms, hers, Lily's, his own. Flipping lights, opening closets, looking under beds. Nothing. The house is silent, the air heavy with the scent of salt and pine. Sarah points to the door, her voice shaky. "It was coming from in there, I heard it." Tom frowns, running a hand over the doorframe. "Could have been the wind, or pipes," he says, but his eyes linger on the door, uncertain. Sarah wants to believe him, but her gut says otherwise. She checks on Lily, still asleep, oblivious to the chaos. The normalcy of her daughter's soft snores feels like a lifeline, but it's not enough to shake the fear. Back in the hallway, Sarah stares at the bedroom door, now closed. The silence is worse than the knocks, like the house is waiting for her to let her guard down. Tom pats her shoulder. "Go to bed, Sarah, it's nothing." But his voice lacks conviction, and he double-checks the locks before heading back to his room. Sarah doesn't sleep. She sits on the balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the waves crash under the moon. The knocks are gone, but the feeling lingers, a sense that something was in that room, watching, testing her. She replays the night searching for answers, but finds none. All she knows is she won't enter that room alone again. The rest of the trip passes without incident. But Sarah's not the same. She avoids her bedroom, sleeping on the couch with Lily curled beside her. The house feels different, like it's watching her, waiting for her to slip. Tom doesn't mention the knocks again, but she catches him checking the doors more often. his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a quiet vigilance. Lily, blissfully unaware, plays on the beach, but Sarah's eyes are always on the house, its windows reflecting the sun like unblinking eyes. This is her only unexplained experience, and it gnaws at her, a crack in her skeptical worldview. Her mother's death 3 weeks ago makes it worse, stirring a longing for meaning, for something beyond logic. But Sarah pushes it down, clinging to facts, even as her gut whispers otherwise. Back home, Sarah tries to move on, but the memory of that night sticks like damp sand. She researches the rental online, digging through reviews, expecting nothing. Most are glowing, great views, cozy vibes, but one buried deep catches her eye. A guest from last summer mentions odd noises at night, like knocking, and a feeling of being watched. Another review, older, describes a door that felt wrong to open. Sarah's pulse quickens. Was it the same room? She emails the rental agency, asking about the house's history, but their reply is vague. Old houses make noises. Nothing to worry about. It's not enough. She needs answers. One evening, Sarah's sister Claire comes over, and Sarah spills the story. Claire, ever the believer, suggests it was her mom's spirit, trying to warn her. Sarah scoffs, but the idea lingers, especially when she finds an old photo of her mom at the beach, smiling in front of a house that looks eerily like the rental. Her mom loved that coast, vacationed there often. Could it be connected? Sarah shakes her head, refusing to entertain it, but the doubt creeps in. She starts noticing things at home, creaks she never heard before, a chill in her bedroom that defies the thermostat. She checks her locks religiously, a habit born that night. Months later, Sarah gets a call from the rental agency. They're refunding her stay, no explanation, just an apology for any inconvenience. She presses, and the agent lets slip that the house is off the market, something about tenant complaints. Sarah's heart sinks. She searches online again, finding a local news article. A break-in at a nearby beach house, same street, same summer. The intruder entered through a balcony door, left no trace, but neighbors reported hearing knocks at night. Sarah's mind reels. Was someone in the house that night testing the doors? The balcony door was steps from her bedroom, unlocked, she realizes now, because Tom used it to smoke. The thought makes her sick. Did her gut save her from an intruder, or was it just a fluke? Sarah never returns to the coast, but the question haunts her. She tells herself it was pipes, wind, anything to keep her world intact. But late at night, when the house is quiet, she hears her mom's voice, soft and urgent. Trust your instincts. In a world full of noise, sometimes the quietest warnings are the loudest. Always listen to your gut. It might just save you. Now, every creak, every shadow makes Sarah wonder, was it a thief, a trick of the mind, or something else? Tied to her mom's memory, trying to protect her? She'll never know, but one thing's certain, she's not ignoring her instincts again. 3 a.m. My apartment is pitch black, silent as a grave when the TV screams to life. Static hissing, light clawing at the walls. Something's tapping inside the screen, sharp and hungry, like it's begging me to let it out. I freeze, heart slamming against my ribs, knowing I didn't touch the remote. That was the first night I met her, the thing in apartment 3B, and she's never left me since. My name's Lucas, and this is the story of how a cheap apartment became my personal hell. I'd moved to a quiet town in upstate New York, fresh out of college, desperate for a new start. Apartment 3B was a steal. 3rd floor, big windows, rent so low it seemed too good to be true. The building was old, with creaky stairs and peeling paint. But I was 23, broke and didn't care. The landlord, Mr. Callahan, handed me the keys, his voice tight. "Lock the windows at night," he said, eyes darting away. I thought he was paranoid. I should have listened. I set up my stuff, a worn couch, a shaky table, and my prized flat screen TV. At first everything was fine, but then I noticed things. My keys would vanish from the hook, reappearing on the counter. A faint smell of cigarette smoke hung in the air, though I don't smoke. The air felt thick, like it was holding its breath. I asked Mr. Callahan about the building's past, but he mumbled about old tenants and hurried off. Then Mrs. Dorsey, the neighbor across the hall, told me the truth. 3B had seen a fire in the 70s, a suicide in the 90s, and a tenant who disappeared, leaving everything behind. "That place is wrong," she warned. I didn't believe her yet. The sign started small but grew impossible to ignore. I'd wake to whispers, faint and distant, like voices carried on the wind. The apartment didn't feel like mine. It felt borrowed, as if I was intruding. I tried to brush it off, focusing on my job, my routine, but the disturbances kept coming. A glass left on the counter was in the sink by morning. My shoes, lined up by the door, were scattered across the living room. I told myself it was stress, but deep down, I knew. Something was waking up and it was watching me. It all started with the TV. I'd be lost in sleep, the world a distant hum, when a burst of static would tear me awake. The TV would turn itself on in the middle of the night, always around 3 a.m., just static, no signal. I'd stumble out of bed, palms sweaty, groping for the remote, but it was never where I left it. Once I found it behind the couch, like it had been thrown. I'd unplugged the TV, blaming a power surge, but the next night it was plugged in again, the screen a writhing mess of gray. Then came the sound that changed everything. I'd hear this tapping, like something was knocking on the inside of the screen. Not from the outside, but from within, like it was trying to get out. It was sharp, deliberate, a rhythm that slowed when I got close, as if daring me to look. I'd stare into the static, heart hammering, telling myself it was a defect. But then I saw it, a flicker, a shape like fingers pressing against the glass from another world. It wasn't a glitch. Something was alive in there. I called an electrician, desperate for a rational explanation. He checked the wiring, the TV, everything. Nothing was wrong. Old electronics, he shrugged, but his eyes lingered on the screen. I tried leaving the TV unplugged, but one night I woke to the static again, the cord neatly plugged in, mocking me. The tapping grew louder, more urgent, and I felt a presence. Like eyes boring into me from the shadows the screen couldn't light. I checked every lock, every corner, but the feeling stayed, heavy and unyielding. The static started to hum, a low, unnatural sound, like a voice trapped in a void. It wasn't the speakers. It was in my skull, whispering things I couldn't make out but felt in my bones. Dread, hunger, come closer. I stopped sleeping, covering the TV with a blanket. But every morning the blanket was on the floor, the screen glowing, the tapping relentless. Whatever was inside wasn't just knocking, it was calling, and it knew my name. I started to dread the night, knowing each flicker of the screen brought her closer. The TV was my first warning, but the bathroom was where I saw her. One night, the static yanked me awake and I dragged myself to the sink, splashing water to, shake the fear. The apartment was quiet, but as I looked up, my breath caught. One night I saw a vague shape in the bathroom mirror, like a person but not quite, and felt this cold breath on the back of my neck. It was tall, thin, its edges blurring into shadow. I spun around, heart in my throat, but the room was empty. Just me, the sink, and that icy breath like someone standing inches away. I blamed exhaustion, but the mirror kept showing signs. Smudges appeared, like fingerprints pressed overnight. One day I found "stay" scratched into the glass, faint but unmistakable. I scrubbed it off, hands shaking, but it was back the next night, deeper, angrier. The bathroom became a place I dreaded, the faucet dripping when I knew it was off, the air freezing around me. The worst came when the TV roared static, but the tapping wasn't from the screen. It was the mirror, a slow, deliberate tap, tap, tap. I grabbed a flashlight, forcing myself to check. The mirror was fogged, though the room was ice cold. I wiped it clear, and there she was, a woman. Her face pale, her eyes black voids. Her lips moved, mouthing, "You're mine." I stumbled back, the flashlight slipping, plunging the room into darkness. When I turned it on, she was gone, but the mirror was cracked, fractures spreading like a web. I locked the bathroom door, but her voice bled through, soft and relentless, whispering my name. Objects moved, my phone appearing in the bathroom. My keys scattered across the floor. The apartment wasn't just haunted, it was hers. She was in every shadow, every reflection, her presence growing heavier. I couldn't look at the TV, couldn't enter the bathroom, couldn't sleep without feeling her eyes. She wasn't just watching, she was claiming me, and I was running out of strength to resist. The truth hit me like a fist. I started feeling like someone was in the apartment with me, especially when the TV was on, like eyes on me from somewhere I couldn't see. This wasn't random, it was a trap, and I was caught. I needed to know what I was up against. Mrs. Dorsey, my neighbor, told me about Eleanor, a woman who died in 3B decades ago, alone and forgotten, her body found weeks later. "She's still here," Mrs. Dorsey whispered, "and she doesn't like company." I dug through town records at the library. Eleanor's file was thin but chilling. Neighbors reported noises, flickering lights, a TV that wouldn't stay off. A tenant in the 80s fled after seeing a woman's face in his mirror, then vanished, his belongings left behind. Eleanor wasn't just a ghost. She owned 3B, and I was her latest target. The apartment turned hostile. The TV flickered on during the day, static showing her face, eyes tracking me. My keys appeared in the fridge, my jacket draped over the TV. Footsteps paced outside my bedroom, slow and deliberate. I tried to fight back, taping the TV's cord, salting the doorways. The tape was torn, the salt scattered, and her voice grew, louder. "You can't leave, Lucas." I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls. Friends thought I was losing it, but they didn't feel her breath, didn't see her in every reflection. The apartment felt smaller, the walls closing in, her presence choking me. I was hers, and she was tightening her grip, pulling me into her world. My dreams became hers, endless corridors, her face in every mirror, her hands dragging me into the static. I couldn't stay another night. I moved out when it became unbearable, but I still feel like whatever was in that apartment hasn't completely let me go. The night I left, 3B waged war. I was packing, hands trembling, when the TV exploded with static. Eleanor's face filling the screen, her black eyes screaming, "You're mine!" Tapping erupted from everywhere. Walls, windows, the cracked mirror, like she was ripping reality apart. I ran for the door, but the lock jammed, the knob ice cold. Her laughter filled the air, low and vicious as I pounded, begging to escape. I don't know how I got out. 1 second I was trapped. The next I was in the hallway, the door slamming behind me. I stayed with a friend, then fled across the state, as far from 3B as I could. But Eleanor lingers. I hear her in the hum of electronics, see her in fleeting reflections. My new apartment is quiet, but I cover the mirrors, keep the TV off. I dream of her, her voice calling, her hands reaching through static. She's still in 3B, waiting for her next tenant. Who was Eleanor? A lonely woman trapped by rage or something darker using her face. Why me? Was I just in the wrong apartment? Or did she see something in me? I have no answers, only a warning. If an apartment feels too good to be true, check its past. Listen for the static. If your TV turns on at 3 a.m., don't look. Whatever's knocking isn't a ghost. It's hungry, and it's already inside. You ever walk into a place and feel it doesn't want you there? Not just a bad vibe, but a weight like the walls themselves are whispering, "Get out." That's what hit me the first night I moved into an old schoolhouse-turned-apartment in upstate New York. It was 2016 and I thought I'd scored a steal. Cheap rent, quirky charm. But by midnight I wasn't so sure. The air shifted, heavy, like something woke up when I turned off the lights. I'm not one for ghost stories. But what happened in that building made me question everything. Something was alive in those walls, and it wasn't happy I'd moved in. The schoolhouse was a relic built in the 1800s, all high ceilings and warped wooden floors. My girlfriend and I had moved in, thinking it was a cool, cheap place to live. I was 25, fresh out of grad school, and Lisa, my girlfriend, loved the idea of living somewhere with history. The building was an old schoolhouse converted into apartments, and we were told it had a creepy vibe by the landlord. He laughed it off, but his eyes didn't. We brushed it aside, signed the lease, and moved in. The place was huge, echoing. Hallways, oversized windows, and a faint smell of chalk dust that never went away. At first it was fine, just an old building with character. But that first night, things changed. We were unpacking, boxes scattered, when I noticed the air felt off. The atmosphere seemed to shift, like the building was alive watching us. I couldn't explain it, but Lisa felt it too. "It's just new place jitters," she said, but her voice was tight. We kept working, trying to ignore it, until we heard, "Do meet a low thump," like something heavy dropped upstairs. We froze. We were on the top floor, so there shouldn't have been anyone above us. I checked the ceiling, expecting a leak or a critter, but it was silent. Then it came again, louder, deliberate, like footsteps pacing directly above. I grabbed a flashlight and checked the hallway, thinking maybe a neighbor was moving stuff. But the building was quiet, the other apartments dark. Back inside, Lisa was pale. "Did you feel that?" she whispered. I nodded. The air was thicker, pressing against my chest like the building was holding its breath. We tried to laugh it off, blaming old pipes or settling wood, but sleep didn't come easy. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling eyes on me from the dark corners of the room. The next morning, I asked our neighbor, an older guy named Tom, if he'd heard anything. He gave me a long look. "You'll get used to it," he said. "This place, it's got a mind of its own." His words stuck with me, a warning I couldn't shake. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. That was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, the schoolhouse would show us exactly what it was hiding, and I'd learned that some buildings aren't just old, they're alive, and they don't forget who's been there before. The schoolhouse didn't let us settle in. After that first night, the strange thumps became a regular thing, always from above, always when we were alone. We were on the top floor, so there shouldn't have been anyone above us. Lisa and I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the roof was creaking. Maybe animals were nesting, but the sounds were too heavy, too deliberate, like someone walking with purpose. I'd lie awake, counting the steps, waiting for them to stop. They never did. Not until dawn broke and the building seemed to exhale. Lisa was rattled, but she hid it well, focusing on unpacking and making the place ours. I wasn't so calm. The atmosphere seemed to shift, like the building was alive, watching us. Every time I walked the hallway, I felt it, a prickle on my neck, like eyes tracking me from the shadows. The oversized windows, once charming, now felt like giant eyes, reflecting nothing but darkness at night. I started avoiding the far end of the apartment, where the old classroom doors were boarded up. Something about that area felt heavier, like it was holding on to something we couldn't see. I asked Tom again, hoping for more than cryptic warnings. He leaned against his door frame, lighting a cigarette. "This place used to be a school for troubled kids," he said. "Back in the day, it wasn't all sunshine. Strict teachers, locked rooms, kids who didn't make it out." His voice dropped. "Some say they never left." I laughed, trying to play it cool, but my stomach twisted. Was that what we were hearing? Echoes of kids long gone? Or something else? We started noticing other things. Lights flickered even after I checked the wiring. Doors we'd closed were open by morning just an inch, like someone had peeked inside. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Lisa found an old chalkboard in the closet, scratched with faint names. Kids' names, maybe. She wanted to throw it out, but I stopped her. It felt wrong, like we'd be disturbing something. Instead, we hid it behind boxes, hoping it'd stay quiet. One night I was alone. Lisa was at a friend's, and the thumps came louder, faster, like someone was pacing angrily. I stood in the living room, flashlight in hand, staring at the ceiling. "Who's there?" I called, half expecting an answer. The thumps stopped, but the air grew colder, the silence so thick it pressed against my ears. Then a new sound, a faint scratch, like nails on wood, coming from the boarded-up classroom door. My heart pounded. I backed away, not daring to check, and slept with every light on. The next day I told Lisa. She didn't laugh it off this time. "I felt it too," she admitted. "Last week in the bathroom I swore I heard whispering. Like kids, but not happy." Her eyes were wide, scared. We agreed to dig deeper, to find out what this place was hiding. The building had a creepy vibe, and we were starting to understand why. Tom's words echoed. They never left. I wasn't sure I believed in ghosts, but I knew one thing. This schoolhouse wasn't just a home. It was a keeper of secrets, and we were stirring them up. We couldn't ignore it anymore. The schoolhouse was alive, its pulse in every creak, every shadow. The atmosphere seemed to shift, like the building was alive, watching us. Lisa and I started researching, digging into the building's past. Online records were sparse, but we found a local history blog mentioning the schoolhouse. A disciplinary school for wayward kids in the early 1900s. Harsh punishments, locked isolation rooms, and rumors of accidents that were hushed up. The blog ended with a chilling note. Some believe the building never let go of its students. Tom filled in more gaps. Over beers in his apartment, he told us about a fire in the 1920s, small but deadly, that killed a few kids in the upper classrooms. They sealed those rooms after, he said, eyes distant, boarded them up and never used them again. I thought of the thumps above us, the scratches behind the boarded door. We were on the top floor, so there shouldn't have been anyone above us. My skin crawled. Were we hearing them? The kids Tom mentioned trapped in the walls? We started avoiding the far end of the apartment where the old classroom doors loomed. But the schoolhouse didn't let us hide. One evening, Lisa was cooking and I was sorting boxes when the lights dimmed, then surged, casting long shadows across the floor. We froze, waiting, and then it came. A low moan, like wind through a cracked window. But all the windows were shut. It came from the boarded-up door, rising and falling, almost human. Lisa grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "What the hell is that?" she whispered. I didn't have an answer. I grabbed a flashlight and approached the door, heart pounding. The wood was warped, nails rusted, but the scratches were fresh, etched deep. Pressed my ear against it, holding my breath. Nothing. Then a faint tap like a finger on the other side. I stumbled back, the flashlight shaking. Lisa pulled me away, her face pale. "We're not opening that," she said, voice firm. Didn't argue. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. That night we slept in the living room, lights on, but sleep didn't come. The thumps returned, louder, joined by whispers, soft, overlapping like a classroom of kids murmuring. I couldn't make out words, but the tone was urgent, almost angry. Lisa clutched my hand, her eyes wide. "They're here," she whispered. I didn't ask who they were. I knew. The schoolhouse wasn't just haunted. It was a prison, and we were intruders in its domain. We decided to talk to the landlord, hoping for answers. He was dismissive, saying old buildings make noises, but his hands shook as he spoke. "Just don't mess with the boarded rooms," he muttered before hurrying away. His fear confirmed what we suspected. The building had a creepy vibe for a reason. It wasn't just history. It was alive, tied to the kids who'd suffered here, and it didn't want us digging deeper. But we couldn't stop. The whispers, the thumps, the scratches, they were getting louder. And I had a sinking feeling that whatever was in those walls was starting to notice us. We were trapped in a cycle. The schoolhouse wasn't just a building. It was a presence. And it was tightening its grip. The atmosphere seemed to shift, like the building was alive, watching us. Lisa found a child's shoe in the hallway, scuffed and old, where none had been before. I checked the closet. No shoes, no boxes, nothing. To explain it, we stared at it, hearts pounding, knowing it wasn't ours. "We need to get out," Lisa said, voice shaking. But our lease locked us in for 6 more months, and money was tight. I started documenting everything, times, sounds, feelings, hoping to find a pattern. The thumps came at 2 a.m., the whispers at dusk, the scratches whenever we got too close. To the boarded door. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. I taped my phone to Rico. You're half asleep, stumbling to the bathroom in the middle of the night, when a shadow, tall, silent, and impossibly dark, glides across your staircase, blotting out the light. That's what I saw in 2012, living in a rented house in a small college town with my roommate. It wasn't human, it didn't make a sound, and when I chased after it, it was gone. But what I learned about that house afterward, it's the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. It gives me chills, thinking that a strange man was in my room or whatever that thing was. Want to know what was hiding in those walls? This story will stick with you. It was late fall 2012 and I was 22, a grad student scraping by in a gritty little college town in upstate New York. I lived in a college town with 6 other young girls in our 20s. The city that we live in, it's not that nice, but I shared a creaky Victorian house with my roommate Emily, a quiet art major who kept to herself. The house was cheap, with high ceilings, warped floors, and a staircase that groaned under every step. It sat on a street lined with sagging porches and flickering street lights, the kind of place where you locked your doors twice. Emily and I were thrilled at first. Our own space, no dorm rules. But the house had a vibe. The air felt heavy, like someone was always just out of sight, watching. From the start, things were off. Lights flickered for no reason. Doors creaked open an inch. Overnight, Emily swore she heard whispers in the attic, but I chalked it up to her late-night painting sessions. I wasn't immune, though. At night, I'd feel a prickle on my neck, like eyes boring into me. The staircase was the worst. Narrow, Dimly lit by a single bulb, it always felt like something was waiting at the top. I'd sprint up it, heart racing, telling myself it was just an old house. But deep down, I knew better. One night around 2 a.m., I woke up needing the bathroom. The house was silent, the kind of quiet that presses on your ears. I shuffled out of my room, half asleep, the hallway light casting a weak glow. As I reached the staircase, a black figure ran into the woods. We just stared into the woods. No, wait, that's not right. I was awoken by someone standing in my room staring at me, or so I thought. But it was different. A tall, dark shadow glided across the staircase, blotting out the light from the hallway bulb. It was huge, at least 7 feet, its edges sharp against the glow. It moved very quietly and deliberately, not a sound, no creak, no shuffle. My breath caught. It didn't turn, didn't pause, just passed through the light and vanished into the dark at the top of the stairs. I froze, heart hammering. Was it a burglar? A trick of the light? I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and flicked on the flashlight. The staircase was empty, the bulb still glowing. I called out, "Emily?" No answer. The person then proceeds to go into our utensils drawer. I thought irrationally, but no, there was no one. I crept downstairs, checking every room, every corner. Nothing. Emily was asleep, her door shut, oblivious. I did a sweep of the whole house afterwards, and as far as I could tell, everything was normal. But it wasn't. That shadow wasn't human. It didn't belong. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every shadow made me jump. The next day, I told Emily. She went pale, admitting she'd seen something too, a figure in the attic window, staring down at the street. We started asking around. The landlord, a gruff guy who smelled like cigarettes, laughed it off. "Old houses, kid," he said. But a neighbor, an old woman who'd lived there forever, wasn't so dismissive. She said the house had a history. The city that we live in has a huge homeless and drug problem where break-ins are not unusual. But this was different. In the 1980s, a tenant had vanished. Poof, gone, no trace. Before that, in the 60s, a fire had killed a family, though the house survived. Locals whispered about something lingering, something that didn't like visitors. We started noticing more. The staircase light would burn out, replaced, then burn out again. My keys would move from the counter to the attic. Emily found scratches on her door, too deep for a cat. One night I heard it, a low rhythmic tapping like fingers on wood coming from the staircase. I grabbed a flashlight, heart pounding, and checked. Nothing. But the air was cold, heavy, like stepping into a freezer. Emily wanted to move out, but our lease had months left and we were broke. Then, a week later, it happened again. I was in the kitchen, midnight, making tea. The staircase light flickered, and that tall, dark shadow glided across again, blotting out the light. This time I saw more. Its edges shimmered, like heat waves, and it moved wrong. Too fluid, too fast. I screamed, dropping my mug. Emily ran in, pale. "You saw it?" she whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. We checked the house, doors locked, windows secure. Nothing. But the staircase felt alive, the air thick with something watching. I started researching, digging through library archives. The house's history was a mess. Disappearances, accidents, whispers of a presence tied to the land. A 1920s article mentioned a man who'd lived there, a recluse who'd talked to shadows before hanging himself in the attic. Locals said he'd never left, that his spirit or something darker claimed the house. I didn't believe in ghosts, but that shadow wasn't a trick. It was real, and it knew we were there. We broke our lease 2 months later, eating the penalty, and moved to a bland apartment across town. The new place was normal. No shadows, no taps. Emily and I drifted apart. She didn't want to talk about it, said it gave her nightmares. I kept digging, though. A year later, I found a forum post from another tenant describing the same shadow on the staircase, the same cold, heavy air. They'd left after a week. The house is still there, rented out to new students who probably don't know its past. It gives me chills thinking that a strange man was in my room, or whatever that thing was. I drive by sometimes, and the staircase window seems to watch me. I've got a camera now, but I'm too scared to go back and set it up. What if it shows me what's really there? Would you risk it, or leave that shadow in the dark? That house is still standing, waiting for its next tenant. It looks normal. Faded paint, sagging porch. But I know what's inside, I've seen it, and once you see that shadow, you'll never feel safe on a staircase again. What would you do if it crossed your path? The flyer promised community, purpose, a place to belong. I joined a college faith group expecting late-night talks and potlucks. Instead, I found something darker. They demanded my deepest secrets, and when I held back, they turned on me, leaving me isolated. This was 2017 in a quiet Ohio campus, and what I uncovered about that group still chills me. A hidden notebook held details of my life I'd never shared, and their leader's questions grew too personal, too controlling. Stay with this true story. It'll make you rethink the groups you trust. It was the fall of 2017, my sophomore year at a small liberal arts college in Ohio. The campus was a bubble of brick buildings and leafy quads, where everyone seemed to know everyone. I was 20, a bit shy and still finding my place. A flyer taped to a dorm bulletin board caught my eye. Join our faith group. Find purpose. Find family. It sounded warm, inviting. I showed up to my first meeting, welcomed by smiles and homemade cookies. The group, called Beacon of Light, met in a cozy basement room with maybe a dozen members, mostly students like me. They shared personal stories, fears, dreams, regrets, and urged me to do the same. It felt intimate, like I'd found a home, but the warmth faded fast. At each meeting, they pushed me to reveal more, digging into my private life, family struggles, past mistakes. I shared a little, like my anxiety about grades, but held back deeper stuff. That's when I noticed a shift. When I dodged their questions, members grew cold, ignoring me mid-conversation. The group's leader, Nathan, a senior with a disarming smile, took a particular interest. He'd corner me after meetings, asking about my relationships, my fears, even my childhood. "We're a family," he'd say, his eyes too intense. "No secrets." My gut twisted. This wasn't fellowship. It was interrogation. I started noticing odd details. Members always carried small notebooks, jotting things down during talks. They'd whisper to Nathan, glancing at me. One night, I stayed late to help clean up and saw Nathan slip a leather-bound book into his bag. It looked old, out of place, among their spiral notebooks. My curiosity grew, but so did my unease. I'd catch group members watching me in the cafeteria, their stares lingering too long. Texts from unknown numbers began popping up, vague messages like, "We see you." I told myself it was a coincidence, but the air around Beacon felt heavier, like I was being sized up. The turning point came a month into joining Beacon. I'd grown wary, attending meetings only to avoid confrontation. Nathan's questions were relentless, probing my family, my doubts, even my whereabouts. I deflected, saying I needed time, but the group's response was swift. They ghosted me. Invites stopped, members avoided me on campus, and my texts to them went unanswered. It stung, but it also woke me up. Something was wrong with Beacon, something cult-like. I couldn't shake Nathan's intensity or the notebooks I'd seen. I needed answers. One evening I lingered after a meeting, pretending to organize chairs. Nathan and a few members stayed behind, huddled in a corner. I hid near the coat rack, heart pounding, and watched as Nathan pulled out that leather-bound book. He opened it, reading softly while others nodded. I caught a glimpse, pages filled with names, dates, and details. My name. My stomach dropped. The book held information about me, my dorm, my classes, even my parents' divorce. Things I'd never shared. How did they know? I slipped out, my mind racing. Back in my dorm, I dug into Beacon online. Their website was polished. All smiles and Bible verses, but forums told a different story. Former members described inner circles, secret rituals, and pressure to obey leaders. One post mentioned a record book used to track members even after they left. My blood ran cold. Beacon wasn't just a faith group. It had the markings of a cult. I thought of the texts, the stares, Nathan's questions. Were they watching me? Testing me? I stopped attending, ignoring Nathan's calls, but the unease followed me. At night, I'd hear footsteps outside my dorm, too deliberate to be random. My roommate noticed me jumping at shadows, asking if I was okay. I wasn't. I confided in a professor, Dr. Ellis, who'd studied religious movements. She listened, her face grim. Groups like this thrive on control, she said. That book, it's leverage. Leave now and don't look back. I took her advice, blocking Nathan's number and avoiding Beacon's meeting spot. But the fear lingered. A week later, a note slipped under my door. You can't hide. No signature, but I knew who sent it. I moved to a new dorm, kept my blinds shut, and started questioning every friendly face on campus. It's been 7 years, but Beacon's shadow still lingers. I graduated, moved to a new city, and built a life far from Ohio. But I checked my locks, twice, wary of groups that seemed too welcoming. That group wasn't just strange, it was dangerous, and I'm lucky I got out. I've spent years piecing together what Beacon was. Public records showed they disbanded in 2019, after complaints of coercive behavior. But rumors persist. Former members claim Nathan started a new group elsewhere, still carrying that book. I found online threads about similar campus groups with stories of secret records and intimidation. One woman in Texas said her group leader knew her therapy sessions. A man in Oregon found his journal entries quoted in a prayer meeting. Each story echoed mine: control, fear, escape. What haunts me is how close I came to being trapped. Nathan's book held pieces of my life I'd kept private, and I'll never know how he got them. Did they follow me, hack my phone, or was it someone I trusted? I think of the members who stayed, their faces blank as Nathan spoke. Were they victims or complicit? And why me? Was I a target or just another name in their book? I've considered confronting Nathan, tracking him down to demand answers. But what if he's still watching? What if that note wasn't the last? Dr. Ellis's words stuck with me. Cults don't need robes or rituals. They need your trust. Beacon taught me to question groups that demand too much, too fast. If you join a club, a church, anything that feels like family, watch for red flags. Do they push for secrets? Punish dissent? Keep records? If they do, run. I ignored my gut, and almost paid for it. Don't make my mistake. Check the groups around you, ask questions. Because once they have your secrets, they have you. Have you been in a group that felt wrong? Seen signs of control or secrecy? Share your story in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone. And if this shook you, subscribe for more true stories. That'll make you rethink who you trust. The next one's coming, and it's even more chilling. Your phone buzzes at midnight. An unknown number flashing. I know where you are. Hannah, a 24-year-old who joined a tight-knit church group for community, stares at the screen, her heart sinking. The sender? Caleb, a guy from her Bible study, whose questions, where do you live, what's your schedule, felt harmless at first. Now he's everywhere. Her coffee shop, her gym, her street. In a place meant for trust, Hannah's world is unraveling. Each message tightens the noose, each chance meeting a warning. Is he just lonely, or is he dangerous? One thing's clear. Her safe havens become a cage. This isn't just a story of obsession. It's a chilling dive into control and betrayal. Stay with me, because Hannah's fight for freedom will keep you on edge until the end. Hannah's life used to feel simple. A new job, a new town, and a Bible study group. At the local church promised connection. The group was warm. Potlucks, prayer circles, shared laughter in a cozy basement room lined with hymnals. But Caleb changed everything. At first, he seemed like just another member, mid-30s, quiet, always clutching a worn leather notebook. His smile was polite, but his eyes lingered too long, like he was memorizing her. Hannah, fresh out of college and eager to fit in, brushed it off. People get close in small groups, right? But then the questions started. Where do you live, Hannah? He'd ask during coffee breaks, his voice soft but probing. What's your schedule like? She'd laugh, give vague answers, but his intensity grew like a shadow stretching across her life. It wasn't just the questions. Caleb started showing up where she was. At the grocery store, he'd be in the same aisle, picking up cereal she'd mentioned liking. At the park, he'd sit on a bench across from her usual running path, his notebook open, pen moving furiously. Hannah's stomach twisted each time, her instincts screaming that these weren't coincidences. She'd catch his gaze, and he'd wave, casual, like it was normal to be everywhere she went. The group didn't notice or didn't care. He's just friendly, the pastor's wife said, patting Hannah's arm. But friendly didn't explain the late-night texts from unknown numbers. I know where you are, one read, sent at 1 a.m. Another, you look nice today. Hannah's hands shook as she blocked the numbers, but new ones kept coming. Each message a brick in a wall closing her in. The church basement, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. Hannah started sitting near the door, her bag packed, ready to bolt. Caleb's presence was suffocating. He'd take the seat next to her, his knee brushing hers, his notebook filled with scribbles she couldn't read. She tried to be polite, not wanting to stir drama in the group, but her patience frayed. She kept her distance, skipping socials, arriving late to meetings. But Caleb adapted, his appearances more calculated. One night, she found a note slipped under her apartment door. Missed you at group. No signature, but she knew. Her heart raced as she double-checked her locks, the quiet of her apartment now a threat. Was he outside, watching? Hannah wasn't just uncomfortable. She was scared, her sense of safety unraveling in a community that was supposed to protect her. Hannah's world shrinks with every text, every glimpse of Caleb. She stopped going. To the park, switched grocery stores, but he's still there. A ghost she can't shake. The church group, once her anchor, now feels like a stage where she's the unwilling star. Caleb's questions have escalated. Why weren't you at group last night? He asked once, his tone sharp like she'd betrayed him. He's at her coffee shop now, sitting 2 tables away, his notebook open, eyes flicking between her and his pen. Hannah's hands tremble as she grips her latte, her phone buzzing with another unknown number. You shouldn't skip group. I miss you. She blocks it, but her chest tightens, the air too thick to breathe. She's not just being watched. She's being hunted. She tries to fight back, confiding in the group's leader, Pastor Mark. Caleb's too intense, she says, voice low, choosing her words carefully. He's following me. Mark's face softens, but his response cuts deep. You should forgive him, Hannah. He's just lost. We're a family here. The words land like a slap. Forgive? For what? Making her feel like prey? She pushes back, detailing the texts, the chants, meetings, but Mark waves it off. He means well, pray about it. Hannah's anger flares, but she nods, knowing she's alone. The group's loyalty lies with Caleb, the quiet man who's been there for years, not the newcomer who's overreacting. Hannah doubles down on avoidance. She skips meetings entirely, changes her routes, but Caleb's relentless. One evening, she spots him outside her apartment, leaning against a street lamp, his silhouette stark under the sodium glow. He doesn't approach, just watches, his notebook tucked under his arm. Hannah's heart pounds as she ducks inside, locking the door, sliding a chair under the knob for good measure. Her phone buzzes. I saw you, why are you hiding? She throws it across the room, tears burning her eyes. This isn't just obsession, it's control, and the group's enabling. Today she feels like a pawn in a game she didn't sign up for, her freedom slipping through her fingers. The pastor's words echo. We're a family. But what kind of family lets this happen? Hannah's breaking point comes at a group dinner she couldn't avoid. Caleb's there, sitting across from her, his smile too wide, his questions too pointed. Where have you been, Hannah? He asks, loud enough for others to hear. The table goes quiet, eyes on her. She stammers, busy, and excuses herself, heart racing. In the bathroom, she splashes water on her face, willing herself to stay calm. But when she steps out, Caleb's there, blocking the hall. You're avoiding me, he says, his voice low, accusing. Hannah freezes, her back against the wall as he steps closer. We're supposed to be close, he whispers. She pushes past him, her skin crawling, and leaves the dinner, vowing never to return. Hannah doesn't just leave the group, she runs. Within weeks, she packs her life into boxes and moves to a new city, a place where no one knows her name, where Caleb's shadow can't reach. Her apartment is small, the walls bare, but it's hers, free from the weight of his stare. She blocks his number, deletes her social media, and starts over. But the fear lingers like a bruise. Every knock, every unfamiliar face, sends her heart racing. The church was supposed to be her refuge, a place to belong, but it became a prison. Its members complicit in her terror. She's wary of groups now, questioning every smile, every promise of community. Trust, once easy, is a luxury she can't afford. Back in her old town, Hannah keeps tabs from afar, searching online for any sign of Caleb. She finds nothing at first, just the church's website, all smiles and sermons. But then, a private forum. Post catches her eye, buried in a local thread. Anyone else have issues with a guy from church name? The poster, anonymous, describes a man, mid-30s, notebook always in hand, who followed her, sent texts, showed up at her work. Others chime in, their stories mirroring Hannah's, personal questions, late-night messages, a group that dismissed their fears. One user mentions a name, Caleb. Hannah's blood runs cold. He wasn't just her problem. He was a pattern, a predator hiding in plain sight, protected by a community that valued harmony over safety. She contacts the poster, a woman named Rachel, who shares more. Caleb had targeted at least 3 others, all young women new to the group. One filed a restraining order, but the church pressured her to drop it, citing forgiveness. Another left town, like Hannah. Rachel reveals a chilling detail. Caleb kept a ledger, his notebook filled with names, addresses, schedules, not just of group members, but strangers he'd fixated on. The group knew, Rachel says, but did nothing, afraid to tarnish their image. Hannah's anger surges. She wasn't paranoid. She was right, and they let her suffer. Hannah considers going public, but the thought of reliving it stops her. Instead, she sends an anonymous tip to the local paper, detailing Caleb's behavior and the group's inaction. Months later, an article appears. Local church faces allegations of ignoring stalker. It's small, buried in the community section, but it names Caleb, now barred from the group after multiple complaints. Hannah exhales, a weight lifting, but not entirely. She wonders how many others he's watching. How many groups are still shielding men like him? Years pass, and Hannah builds a new life. A job she loves, friends who don't ask too much. But the scars remain. She avoids churches, wary of their promises, and keeps her address private, her routines unpredictable. One day, sorting through old mail, she finds a postcard, no return address, just a handwritten note. "I think of you." Her heart stops. Is it Caleb? A coincidence? She burns, refusing to let fear reclaim her. But the question haunts her. She checks the news, the forums, and finds a new post. Another woman, another town, describing a man with a notebook, asking too many questions. Hannah's stomach twists. He's still out there, or someone like him is. In a world where community can mask control, trust is a gamble. Hannah learned that the hard way, and she'll never let her guard down again. Now, every new face, every too friendly smile makes her wonder, is this another Caleb waiting to strike? Or is she safe, finally? Free? She'll never know, but one thing's certain. Her story's a warning to listen when your instincts scream run. Your phone buzzes at midnight, an unknown number flashing. I know where you are. Hannah, a 24-year-old who joined a tight-knit church group for community, stares at the screen, her heart sinking. The sender? Caleb, a guy from her Bible study, whose questions, where do you live, what's your schedule, felt harmless at first. Now he's everywhere. Her coffee shop, her gym, her street. In a place meant for trust, Hannah's world is unraveling. Each message tightens the noose, each chance meeting a warning. Is he just lonely, or is he dangerous? One thing's clear. Her safe haven's become a cage. This isn't just a story of obsession. It's a chilling dive into control and betrayal. Stay with me, because Hannah's fight for freedom will keep you on edge until the end. Hannah's life used to feel simple. A new job, a new town, and a Bible study group. At the local church promised connection. The group was warm. Potlucks, prayer circles, shared laughter in a cozy basement room lined with hymnals. But Caleb changed everything. At first, he seemed like just another member, mid-30s, quiet, always clutching a worn leather notebook. His smile was polite, but his eyes lingered too long, like he was memorizing her. Hannah, fresh out of college and eager to fit in, brushed it off. People get close in small groups, right? But then the questions started. Where do you live, Hannah? He'd ask during coffee breaks, his voice soft but probing. What's your schedule like? She'd laugh, give vague answers, but his intensity grew like a shadow stretching across her life. It wasn't just the questions. Caleb started showing up where she was. At the grocery store, he'd be in the same aisle, picking up cereal she'd mentioned liking. At the park, he'd sit on a bench across from her usual running path, his notebook open, pen moving furiously. Hannah's stomach twisted each time, her instincts screaming that these weren't coincidences. She'd catch his gaze, and he'd wave, casual, like it was normal to be everywhere she went. The group didn't notice or didn't care. He's just friendly, the pastor's wife said, patting Hannah's arm. But friendly didn't explain the late-night texts from unknown numbers. I know where you are. One read, "Sent at 1 a.m." Another, "You look nice today." Hannah's hands shook as she blocked the numbers, but new ones kept coming. Each message a brick in a wall closing her in. The church basement, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap. Hannah started sitting near the door, her bag packed, ready to bolt. Caleb's presence was suffocating. He'd take the seat next to her, his knee brushing hers, his notebook filled with scribbles she couldn't read. She tried to be polite, not wanting to stir drama in the group, but her patience frayed. She kept her distance, skipping socials, arriving late to meetings, but Caleb adapted, his appearances more calculated. One night, she found a note slipped under her apartment door. "Missed you at group." No signature, but she knew. Her heart raced as she double-checked her locks, the quiet of her apartment now a threat. Was he outside, watching? Hannah wasn't just uncomfortable, she was scared, her sense of safety unraveling in a community that was supposed to protect her. Hannah's world shrinks with every text, every glimpse of Caleb. She stopped going. To the park, switched grocery stores, but he's still there. A ghost she can't shake. The church group, once her anchor, now feels like a stage where she's the unwilling star. Caleb's questions have escalated. "Why weren't you at group last night?" he asked once, his tone sharp like she'd betrayed him. He's at her coffee shop now, sitting 2 tables away, his notebook open, eyes flicking between her and his pen. Hannah's hands tremble as she grips her latte, her phone buzzing with another unknown number. "You shouldn't skip group. I miss you." She blocks it, but her chest tightens, the air too thick to breathe. She's not just being watched, she's being hunted. She tries to fight back, confiding in the group's leader, Pastor Mark. "Caleb's too intense," she says, voice low, choosing her words carefully. "He's following me." Mark's face softens, but his response cuts deep. "You should forgive him, Hannah. He's just lost. We're a family here." The words land like a slap. Forgive? For what? Making her feel like prey? She pushes back, detailing the texts, the chants, meetings, but Mark waves it off. He means well, pray about it. Hannah's anger flares, but she nods, knowing she's alone. The group's loyalty lies with Caleb, the quiet man who's been there for years, not the newcomer who's overreacting. Hannah doubles down on avoidance. She skips meetings entirely, changes her routes, but Caleb's relentless. One evening, she spots him outside her apartment, leaning against a street lamp, his silhouette stark under the sodium glow. He doesn't approach, just watches, his notebook tucked under his arm. Hannah's heart pounds as she ducks inside, locking the door, sliding a chair under the knob for good measure. Her phone buzzes. "I saw you. Why are you hiding?" She throws it across the room, tears burning her eyes. This isn't just obsession. It's control, and the group's enabling. Today she feels like a pawn in a game she didn't sign up for, her freedom slipping through her fingers. The pastor's words echo. We're a family. But what kind of family lets this happen? Hannah's breaking point comes at a group dinner she couldn't avoid. Caleb's there, sitting across from her, his smile too wide, his questions too pointed. "Where have you been, Hannah?" he asks, loud enough for others to hear. The table goes quiet, eyes on her. She stammers, "Busy," and excuses herself, heart racing. In the bathroom, she splashes water on her face, willing herself to stay calm. But when she steps out, Caleb's there, blocking the hall. "You're avoiding me," he says, his voice low, accusing. Hannah freezes, her back against the wall as he steps closer. "We're supposed to be close," he whispers. She pushes past him, her skin crawling, and leaves the dinner, vowing never to return. Hannah doesn't just leave the group. She runs. Within weeks, she packs her life into boxes and moves to a new city, a place where no one knows her name, where Caleb's shadow can't reach. Her apartment is small, the walls bare, but it's hers, free from the weight of his stare. She blocks his number, deletes her social media, and starts over. But the fear lingers like a bruise. Every knock, every unfamiliar face, sends her heart racing. The church was supposed to be her refuge, a place to belong, but it became a prison. Its members complicit in her terror. She's wary of groups now, questioning every smile, every promise of community. Trust, once easy, is a luxury she can't afford. Back in her old town, Hannah keeps tabs from afar, searching online for any sign of Caleb. She finds nothing at first, just the church's website, all smiles and sermons. But then, a private forum. Post catches her eye, buried in a local thread. Anyone else have issues with a guy from church name? The poster, anonymous, describes a man, mid-30s, notebook always in hand, who followed her, sent texts, showed up at her work. Others chime in, their stories mirroring Hannah's, personal questions, late-night messages, a group that dismissed their fears. One user mentions a name, Caleb. Hannah's blood runs cold. He wasn't just her problem. He was a pattern, a predator hiding in plain sight, protected by a community that valued harmony over safety. She contacts the poster, a woman named Rachel, who shares more. Caleb had targeted at least 3 others, all young women new to the group. One filed a restraining order, but the church pressured her to drop it, citing forgiveness. Another left town, like Hannah. Rachel reveals a chilling detail. Caleb kept a ledger, his notebook filled with names, addresses, schedules, not just of group members, but strangers he'd fixated on. The group knew, Rachel says, but did nothing, afraid to tarnish their image. Hannah's anger surges. She wasn't paranoid, she was right, and they let her suffer. Hannah considers going public, but the thought of reliving it stops her. Instead, she sends an anonymous tip to the local paper, detailing Caleb's behavior and the group's inaction. Months later, an article appears. Local church faces allegations of ignoring stalker. It's small, buried in the community section, but it names Caleb, now barred from the group after multiple complaints. Hannah exhales, a weight lifting, but not entirely. She wonders how many others he's watching, how many groups are still shielding men like him. Years pass, and Hannah builds a new life, a job she loves, friends who don't ask too much. But the scars remain. She avoids churches, wary of their promises, and keeps her address private, her routines unpredictable. One day, sorting through old mail, she finds a postcard, no return address, just a handwritten note. "I think of you." Her heart stops. Is it Caleb? A coincidence? She burns, refusing to let fear reclaim her. But the question haunts her. She checks the news, the forums, and finds a new post. Another woman, another town, describing a man with a notebook, asking too many questions. Hannah's stomach twists. He's still out there, or someone like him is. In a world where community can mask control, trust is a gamble. Hannah learned that the hard way, and she'll never let her guard down again. Now, every new face, every too friendly smile makes her wonder, is this another Caleb, waiting to strike? Or is she safe, finally? Free? She'll never know, but one thing's certain. Her story's a warning to listen when your instincts scream run. I froze in my kitchen, a plate slipping from my hands, when I heard my dad's voice call my name. It was 2018, a quiet evening in our Chicago suburb home, and the sound was so clear, so him, it stopped my heart. "Emma," he called, sharp, urgent, like he was just down the hall, but he wasn't. Dad was 200 miles away at a work conference. I stood there alone, the echo of his voice ringing in my ears, and realized something was terribly wrong. That call wasn't a mistake. It was a warning, and it opened a door to a mystery I'm still trying to unravel. I was 22, living with my parents to save money while I figured out life after college. Our house was a normal suburban home, nothing special, no creepy vibes. Mom was out at her book club, and Dad, as I said, was gone for the week. I was home alone doing dishes when I heard my dad call my name from the living room. It wasn't a muffled sound, not a TV or a neighbor. It was his voice, unmistakable, the same tone he'd use when I was late for dinner. I called back, thinking he'd come home early but got no response. My stomach dropped. I wiped my hands, heart racing, and checked the living room. Empty. The TV was off, the windows closed, the house silent. I called Dad's phone, my hands shaking. He picked up, sounding confused. "I'm in Milwaukee, kiddo. What's wrong?" I told him what I'd heard, his voice clear as day. He laughed, blaming my imagination, but I heard the unease in his tone. I checked the house, every room, but found nothing. No one was there. Still, I couldn't shake it. The air felt different, heavy, like someone had just left the room. I turned on every light, checked the locks, and sat on the couch staring at the hallway, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't, not that night. But the next day, I couldn't let it go. I asked Mom when she got home, half expecting her to tease me. Instead, her face tightened. "You heard him?" she asked, voice low. She admitted she'd heard things too. Dad's voice once, calling her name when he was at work. She thought it was her mind playing tricks, but now she wasn't. Sure, I pressed her, but she clammed up, saying it was nothing. I wasn't buying it. Our normal house was hiding something, and that call was just the start. I started noticing things. A creak in the hallway at night, like someone pacing. A door I'd closed now slightly ajar. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake. The feeling that the house was trying to tell me something. I wasn't scared. Not yet. I was curious, driven to understand why Dad's voice had cut through the silence, why it felt so real. Was it him, somehow reaching me? Or was it something else using his voice to get my attention? That question burned, and I knew I had to find the answer, even if it meant facing whatever was lurking in our home. The incident with Dad's voice wouldn't leave me. I went through my days, work, errands, dinners with Mom, but my mind was stuck on that call, so clear, so real. Our house was a normal suburban home, nothing special, no creepy vibes. Yet now every creak felt like a signal, every shadow a threat. I started watching the house, listening for anything out of place. At night, I'd lie awake, straining to hear his voice again, half hoping, half dreading it would come. It didn't, but the silence was worse, like the house was waiting for me to make the next move. I pressed Mom again, cornering her in the kitchen. "You said you heard Dad too. What else?" She sighed, wiping her hands on a towel. "It was months ago, Emma. I was in the basement folding laundry and I heard him call me. I thought he was home, but..." She trailed off, eyes distant. She thought it was her mind playing tricks, but now she wasn't sure. I pushed, asking if she'd heard anything else. She hesitated, then admitted to hearing footsteps sometimes, late at night in the hallway. "It's an old house," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I started digging into the house's history. It was built in the 1970s. Nothing remarkable. No tragedies, no ghost stories, but the more I looked, the more I noticed oddities. A neighbor, Mrs. Carter, mentioned the previous owners moved out quickly, saying the house felt off. She didn't elaborate, but her uneasy smile stuck with me. I checked online forums, searching for anything about voices or hauntings. Most were nonsense, but a few posts described mimic spirits, entities that copy familiar voices to lure or warn. The idea sent chills down my spine. Was that what I'd heard? Something pretending to be Dad? The house grew stranger. I'd find lights on in rooms I hadn't touched. The basement door, always locked, was open one morning, a cold draft seeping out. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was trying to tell me something. I started avoiding the hallway at night, where the footsteps Mom mentioned seemed loudest. But one evening, alone again, I heard it. Not Dad's voice, but a low hum, like someone murmuring, just out of earshot. It came from the living room where I'd first heard him. I stood there, frozen, straining to make out words, but it faded, leaving the air thick and heavy. I told my best friend Mia over coffee. She was skeptical but curious. "Maybe it's stress," she said, then paused. "Or maybe it's something else, you should record it." I took her advice, setting up my phone to record at night. The first few nights, nothing, just static and my own breathing. But the anticipation kept me up, my eyes darting to the hallway, waiting for his voice. I was home alone when it happened, and it shook me to my core. I wasn't just chasing a sound anymore, I was chasing a truth, one that felt closer every day. The house wasn't normal, and neither was what lived in it. I had to know what it wanted, even if it meant facing it alone. I was obsessed. Every spare moment I was listening, watching, waiting for the house to speak again. I was home alone when it happened, and it shook me to my core. The memory of Dad's voice, so clear, haunted me. But now it was more. The hum, the footsteps, the lights. I couldn't dismiss it as imagination anymore. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was trying to tell me something. I needed proof, something to anchor this madness, or I'd lose my grip. Kept recording, my phone running through batteries as I captured hours of silence. One night I got something. At 1:47 a.m., a faint voice, not Dad's, but a woman's, whispered, "Emma." It was soft, almost tender, but it sent ice through my veins. I played it back over and over, my hands trembling. No one else was home. The voice wasn't Mom, wasn't Mia, wasn't anyone I knew. I showed it to Mia, who went pale. "That's not normal," she said. "You need to figure out what this is." I dug deeper, talking to more neighbors. Mr. Hayes, an old man across the street, remembered the house's first owners, a family who left after a year. They said it felt like someone was always there, he said, eyes narrowing. Heard voices, saw things move. He didn't know more, but it was enough to fuel my search. I checked property records, finding nothing unusual, but the idea of a mimic spirit kept nagging at me. Was it copying Dad's voice? Or was it something personal tied to our family? The house grew bolder. I'd wake to find my bedroom door open, though I'd locked it. The kitchen faucet dripped even after I'd tightened it. One evening I was reading in the living room when the TV flickered on, static buzzing, then off. I unplugged it, heart pounding, but the air felt charged, like someone was standing just behind me. Our house was a normal suburban home, nothing special, no creepy vibes, or so I'd thought. Now it was a stage, and I was caught in its play. I confronted Mom again, playing the recording of the woman's voice. She listened, face ashen. "I've heard her too," she admitted, voice barely audible. "Not just your dad. A woman, calling my name in the basement." She thought it was her mind playing tricks, but now she wasn't sure. She refused to say more, but her fear was real. I wanted to push, but I saw the toll it was taking. Her sleepless eyes, her jumpiness. This wasn't just about me anymore. Whatever was in the house was reaching for her too. One night alone, I sat in the living room, recorder running, and spoke to it. Why Dad's voice? Why me? The air grew cold, the hum returning, louder, almost a growl. I waited, breath shallow, and then I heard it. My name, not Dad's voice, but hers, the woman's. Sharp and clear from the hallway. I turned, but no one was there. The recorder caught it, undeniable. I checked the house, every room, but found nothing. But I knew now this wasn't a trick. It was a message, and I was running out of time to understand it. The house was no longer ours. It belonged to her. The woman's voice, the one calling my name, weaving through the cracks of our lives. I was home alone when it happened, and it shook me to my core. The recordings, the footsteps, the flickering lights, they were her, and she was getting louder. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My days consumed by the need to understand. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was trying to tell me something. But what? And why Dad's voice first? I showed the recordings to Mia, who urged me to get help. A priest, a psychic, anything. I wasn't ready for that. This felt personal, tied to our family, and I needed answers from within. I started searching the house, checking every corner for clues. In the basement, behind old boxes, I found a small, dusty photo album, its pages yellowed. Inside were pictures of the house's first owners. A couple, their faces stern, and a woman, young, with sharp eyes. Was she the voice? The album gave no names, but it felt like a lead. Mom was breaking under the strain. She admitted to hearing the woman more often, always in the basement calling her name. She thought it was her mind playing tricks, but now she wasn't sure. I don't feel safe here, she whispered, tears in her eyes. I promised we'd figure it out, but I was scared too. The house felt alive, its pulse in every hum, every creak. One night, I caught Mom standing in the hallway, staring at nothing. She's here, she said, voice hollow. I pulled her away, my heart racing. We were both targets now. I kept recording, desperate for clarity. One night, alone, I set up the phone in the living room and waited. The air grew cold, the hum louder, and then her voice, not a whisper but a command. Emma, listen, I froze, my name echoing from the hallway. I grabbed the flashlight, approaching the basement door, which was ajar, though I'd locked it. The hum was deafening now, vibrating in my chest. I called out, "What do you want?" The answer came, a faint laugh, not cruel but knowing, from the basement stairs. I didn't go down. I couldn't. The recording caught it all. My voice, hers, the laugh. I played it for Mom, who broke down. "We need to leave," she said, but we couldn't, not yet. Money was tight, and Dad, still skeptical, thought we were overreacting. I showed him the recording when he got home. His face paled, but he insisted it was a prank, a glitch. I didn't buy it. I checked the house, every room, but found nothing. Yet the truth was undeniable. She was here, and she wasn't leaving. The photo album, her voice, the way she used Dad's voice. It was a message, and we were running out of time to decode it. I stood in the hallway that night, recorder in hand, and spoke to her. "I'm listening. Tell me." The house answered. A Decker slammed upstairs hard enough to shake the walls. Our house was a normal suburban home. Nothing special, no creepy vibes. But it wasn't anymore. It was hers, and she was claiming it, one call at a time. I had to find out who she was, or we'd never escape her. We couldn't stay in that house. The woman's voice, her laugh, her presence, it was too much. I was home alone when it happened, and it shook me to my core. Mom was a wreck, jumping at every sound, and even Dad, the skeptic, started to crack after hearing the recordings. Something wasn't right. and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was trying to tell me something. We had to get out, no matter the cost. But leaving meant facing her one last time, and I wasn't sure we were ready. We found a rental across town, a small apartment we could barely afford. As we packed, the house fought back. Doors slammed without wind, lights flickered, and the hum grew louder, angrier. Mom found a photo from the album, torn with the woman's face scratched out on her pillow. We burned it, hoping it would help, but the air stayed heavy like she was watching. I kept the recordings, my only proof, but I stopped listening. They scared me too much. The day we moved, the house was silent, unnervingly so. Our house was a normal suburban home. Nothing special, no creepy vibes. But as we loaded the last box, I heard it. Her voice, soft, calling my name from the basement. I didn't look back. We drove away, the house shrinking in the rear view. But I felt her eyes on me, a weight I couldn't shake. In the new apartment, things were quiet, no voices, no footsteps. But Mom and I were changed. We'd check corners, flinch at creaks, always waiting for her to call again. Years later, I looked into the house. New tenants live there now, and I wonder if they hear her, if they know what we left behind. I asked Mrs. Carter, who still lives, nearby. She said the house is quiet now, but her eyes told a different story. I never found out who the woman was. No records, no answers. The album stayed with the house, and I hope it stays buried. I checked the house, every room, but found nothing. Yet I know she's there, waiting for someone new to listen. Now, at 29, I'm not the same. Something wasn't right, and I'll never feel alone again. That house taught me that normal doesn't exist. Not when voices cut through silence, not when the past refuses to stay buried. I don't know if she was a ghost, a memory, or something else, but she was real, and she wanted us to hear her. If you hear your name called in an empty house, don't answer. It might not be who you think. Share your own creepy stories in the comments. I need to know I'm not the only one. And if you want more tales that'll keep you up, hit that subscribe button. You'll never trust a quiet house again. I was cleaning a stranger's house alone when I realized something was cleaning me, watching my every move, waiting for me to notice. In 2012, I was working in someone else's house in a sleepy Wisconsin suburb, and I had this feeling that I was being watched, like eyes were burning into my back. Then I heard it. Footsteps upstairs when no one was home, and the closet door just opened by itself. What I uncovered about that house made me quit my job and never look back. I found out later that house had a weird history. Someone went missing there years ago. Want to know what was stalking me in those halls? This will make your skin crawl. It was the summer of 2012, and I was 24, hustling as a house cleaner in a quiet suburb outside Madison, Wisconsin. My name's Laura, and I'd taken the gig to pay for community college, scrubbing floors and dusting shelves for wealthy folks who were rarely home. The job was easy enough, until I got assigned to the old Craftsman on Maple Street. The house was gorgeous, with stained glass windows and polished wood, but it gave me the creeps from day one. I was working in someone else's house, and I had this feeling that I was being watched, a prickle on my neck that never went away. The client, an older woman named Mrs. Harlan, was always out, leaving me alone with her antique furniture and eerie silence. The first time I cleaned there, I noticed odd things. Mirrors seemed to reflect movement when I wasn't looking. The air felt heavy, like walking through fog. I'd hear faint taps like someone knocking inside the walls, but I brushed it off as pipes or squirrels. Mrs. Harlan never mentioned anything weird, just left notes about polishing the silver or vacuuming the rugs. But by my third visit, I couldn't ignore it. The house didn't feel empty. It felt alive, like it was waiting for something, or someone. One afternoon, I was mopping the kitchen floor, the radio playing softly, when I felt it again. That prickling sensation like eyes drilling into me. I turned, expecting nothing, but the air was colder, thicker. I called out, "Hello?" My voice echoed unanswered. Shaking it off, I kept working, moving to the living room to dust the bookshelves. That's when I heard it. Footsteps upstairs when no one was home, heavy and deliberate, pacing across the floorboards. My heart lurched. Mrs. Harlan was at a luncheon, her car gone. I was alone. Or so I thought. I grabbed my phone, hands trembling, and crept to the staircase. The steps were dark, the upstairs hallway hidden in shadow. "Is someone there?" I called, my voice thin. Silence. Then, another step. Slow, creaking. I wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. I forced myself upstairs, flashlight on, checking every room. Bedrooms, bathroom, guest room, all empty. The air was icy, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones. I told myself it was the house settling, but my gut screamed otherwise. Back downstairs, I tried to focus, wiping. Down the dining table, when the closet door just opened by itself in the hallway. Not a creak, not a swing. It slid open, smooth and silent, like someone pushed it from inside. I froze, staring at the dark gap. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Nothing moved, but the air felt wrong, heavy with intent. I grabbed a broom, heart pounding, and nudged the door wider. Empty, just coats and boxes. But the feeling of being watched was unbearable, like invisible hands brushing my skin. I checked the whole house, but there was no one there. I was terrified. Every door was locked, every window secure. I called Mrs. Harlan, my voice shaking, asking if anyone else had a key. She sounded confused, said no one should be there. I didn't tell her about the footsteps or the door. I didn't want her to think I was crazy, but I couldn't stay. I grabbed my bag, locked up, and left, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. That night I couldn't sleep, replaying the sounds, the door, that suffocating presence. The next day, I asked around at the cleaning agency. A co-worker, an older woman named Diane, went quiet when I mentioned the house. "That place," she said, "it's got a bad history." I found out later that house had a weird history. Someone went missing there years ago. In the 1990s, a young man, a tenant, had vanished without a trace. His car was still in the driveway, his belongings untouched. Cops found nothing. No body, no clues. Locals whispered about strange noises, shadows in the windows, even before the disappearance. Some said the house was cursed, built on land where something dark lingered. I went back once more, against my better judgment, because I needed the money. The air was heavier, the silence oppressive. As I vacuumed the living room, I heard it. Again, footsteps faster this time, circling above me. I dropped the vacuum, my pulse racing, and ran to the stairs. Nothing. But in the hallway, a mirror caught my reflection, and something else. A shape, tall and blurred, stood behind me. I spun around, but it was gone. The closet door was open again, wider this time. I didn't check. I ran, left my supplies, and quit the job that day. I started digging into the house's past, scouring library records and old newspapers. The disappearance wasn't the only incident. In the 1970s, a family had fled after unexplained events. Noises, objects moving. A child claiming to see a man in the walls. A 1950s article mentioned a death. A woman found in the attic, ruled a suicide but suspicious. The house had changed hands dozens of times. Tenants leaving after weeks, sometimes days. Online forums had stories too. Cleaners, repairmen, all describing the same feeling, the same footsteps, the same shadow. I'm in a new job now, cleaning offices, no old houses. I don't talk about it much. Friends think I'm exaggerating. But I know what I felt. That house wasn't empty. Something was there, watching, waiting. I keep a recorder in my car, just in case, but I'll never go back to Maple Street. I was terrified, and I still am, thinking about what might have happened. If I'd stayed longer, the house is still there, rented out to new owners who probably don't know its secrets. Would you take that job or walk away? And if you heard those footsteps, would you dare look behind you? That craftsman is still standing, picture perfect, on the outside. But I know what's inside, I've felt it. And once you feel that presence, you'll never trust an empty house again. What would you do if it watched you? The light flickered, casting jagged shadows across the concrete walls of our basement. I'd moved down there to escape my parents' endless fights, but the silence was too heavy, too alive. Then came the noises, scraping, footsteps in the cold, dark. This was 2018 in a crumbling Kentucky home, and what I found in that basement wasn't just unsettling, it was alive. A shadowy figure flickered in the corner, gone when I turned on the light. Stay with this true story. It'll make you question what's hiding in the corners of your own house. It was the winter of 2018, in a small Kentucky town where the houses were old and the winters bitter. Our two-story home, sagging with age, was a battleground for my parents. Arguments, shouting matches that echoed through the walls. I was 19, caught in the crossfire, desperate for peace. I moved into the basement, a damp concrete space with a single bulb and a creaky cot, hoping to drown out the chaos above. At first it worked. The cold silence was a relief, a cocoon where I could breathe. But it didn't last. A few nights in, I started hearing noises, soft scrapes like nails on wood, then faint footsteps pacing above. I'd lie awake, heart racing, telling myself it was the house settling or pipes groaning. But the sounds were too rhythmic, too deliberate. I checked the basement door, always locked, and the tiny window, bolted shut. No one could get in. Yet the noises persisted, growing louder each night. I'd turn on the bulb, its weak light barely reaching the corners, and find nothing. Just shadows, stretching too long across the walls. One night I woke to a chill, the air heavier than usual. I fumbled for my phone, its glow cutting through the dark. In the far corner, a shadowy shape flickered, human-like but blurred, gone when I snapped on the light. My breath caught. Was it my eyes playing tricks? I'd been sleeping poorly, stressed from the fights upstairs. But the memory of that shape lingered, too vivid to dismiss. I pulled the blanket tighter, eyes fixed on the corner, waiting for it to return. It didn't, but the silence felt like a held breath, as if something was watching, waiting for me to look away. The basement became a prison I couldn't escape. The noises grew bolder, scrapes turning to knocks, footsteps circling my cot at night. I'd lie frozen, clutching my phone, too scared to move. That shadowy figure appeared more often, always in the same corner, vanishing when I hit the light. It wasn't my imagination. I'd see it in the split second before the bulb flared, a vague outline, tall and thin, its edges dissolving like smoke. My heart would pound for hours after, sleep a distant memory. I knew something was down there with me, something that didn't belong. I tried talking to my mom, Laura, one morning over coffee. Her eyes were tired, her voice sharp from another fight with Dad. "You're stressed," she said, dismissing my story of noises and shadows. "It's just the house, come back upstairs." Dad, as usual, barely listened, muttering about teenage nonsense. But I couldn't go back, not to the shouting, the slammed doors, Yet the basement was no sanctuary. It was a trap, and I was caught. I started researching, huddled under a blanket with my laptop. Old houses like ours often had histories, settlers, tragedies, things left behind. Our town's library had records of our property, a homestead from the 1800s. One entry mentioned a worker who disappeared in 1892, last seen in the cellar. Another described unexplained noises in the 1940s, driving a family out. My skin crawled. Was that shadow tied to the basement? Was it angry I was there? I found forums about hauntings, with stories of shadows that watched, moved, waited. One user described a presence in their cellar, leaving scratches on walls. I checked ours, no scratches, but the air felt charged, like static before a storm. One night the noises stopped. The silence was worse, suffocating. I sat up, phone in hand, scanning the dark. The bulb flickered, then died. In the blackness I felt it, eyes on me, close, unblinking. I scrambled for my flashlight, its beam shaking as I swept the room. Nothing. But the cold was unbearable, seeping into my bones. I bolted upstairs, slamming the basement door, my chest heaving. Laura found me curled on the couch, pale and trembling. "What's wrong?" she asked, softer now. I told her everything. The noises, the shadow, the feeling of being hunted. She hugged me, but her eyes darted to the basement door, as if she sensed it too. I never went back to the basement. Laura let me sleep in the guest room, and we avoided talking about it. But that winter left scars. I moved out the next year, to a bright apartment far from Kentucky. Laura and Dad split selling the house. I don't know if the new owners felt it, the shadow, the noises, but I hope they never ventured below. Something was in that basement, and it wasn't human. I still wake up some nights, heart racing, convinced I hear those footsteps. The dark feels too alive, too watchful. I've dug into the house's past. Town records mentioned more than just that missing worker. In the 1920s, a family reported ghostly figures in the cellar, fleeing soon after. A 1970s tenant claimed tools moved on their own down there. Online I found others with basement hauntings, shadows that lingered, noises without source. One woman in Virginia said a figure watched her sleep, vanishing when she screamed. A man in Missouri found old bones under his cellar floor, tied to an unsolved death. Each story felt like a piece of mine, but none explained what it wanted. What haunts me most is Laura's reaction that last night. Her glance at the basement door wasn't just fear, it was recognition. Did she hear the noises too? See the shadow? She never admitted it, but she stopped going downstairs after I left. I've thought about returning, shining a light into that corner, demanding answers. But what if it's still there? What if it follows me? I avoid basements now, sticking to upper floors. But the feeling of being watched never fully fades. Here's what I know. Old houses hold more than memories. If you hear strange noises, see shapes in the dark, don't ignore them. Check your basement, your attic, the places light doesn't reach. Something lived in our basement, and it wanted me to know it was there. If you felt a presence in your home, seen shadows that don't belong, share your story below. I need to know I'm not alone. And if this chilled you, subscribe for more true tales that'll make you rethink your home. The next one's coming, and it's even darker. 12 stories, 12 windows into the darker side of America. And now they belong to you. You've heard about the places, the names, the sounds, but what you haven't heard is everything that came after. Some of these stories never truly ended. The house still stands, the road is still open, and the thing someone saw in the mirror, it still shows up. just not always in reflections. If something feels different now, like the silence has weight, or the air feels colder, don't ignore it. That's how it begins. Not with screams, but with stillness. The kind that sends back. And if you think this was chilling, know this. The next 12 stories we've uncovered go even deeper. More recent, more violent, more personal. So subscribe, and when you return, be ready to question everything. Because next time, the story might not be about someone else, it might be yours.